The guys know what to do, but they can't get their shit together to do it. And that's where I think men's work comes in. And that's the beauty, the core groups where we have mutual accountability, where we can support each other and kick each other in the ass when we need to do that, and help each other to get over those rough places where we don't know how or don't believe we can do it on our own. And it's at those times that men's work really becomes important.
I'm Paul, founder of Manifesto. Core is our online mastermind network, and this video is recorded live during our weekly community meeting. If you like it, then subscribe and check out our website if you'd like to join the next community meeting held every Friday. Welcome, gentlemen, to our Manifesto Core Friday meeting. And it's a special meeting today, as I mentioned, because we have quite a few guests from outside, from our broader network, and we have a couple of our leaders that are all heading into a leadership gathering here at Manifesto HQ here in Denmark. We have people who have traveled here from Canada, UK, Germany, Sweden, all over Europe, Holland. I think there's a couple of people still on their way. And so we're kind of trying to share a little bit about the energy, about what we're heading into here now as well, but also to gather in input and feedback from you guys, and take that with us into the discussions that we're going to be having this weekend. And so we have a little panel here of men. I won't go into detail presenting them. I think most of you know who they are, but they're going to answer the question for us, which is going to be, what is the most important task in Manifesto or in the men's movement that you're engaging on this year, and why is it important? And we've actually just had a little round after lunch here with the guys who are sitting here. We're 11 guys sitting at lunch, talking about like what's on our radar, what's up, what are we taking with us? It's a kind of an informal event. And what really just came through very, very strongly, and was certainly at the top of my radar, was the personal relationships and the kind of fellowship that we're developing, and the meaningful depth of brotherhood that we're actually building inside this network here, and how much that's come to mean for me. I got to say that as the first guys were arriving, so my son and my wife are still here at home as well. And my son was just like staring at these guys as they were coming into the house. And he's very, very attentive little boy. He's 19 months old. And many of them have been here before. Like, some of them have actually been here pretty regularly so far. And so I'm just realizing, like, this is really my tribe. This is my extended family. And it's such a privilege to have these amazing men coming here and visiting me and sharing in that. And that can be a part of his life growing up. So he's going to grow up, living on a farm where there's these incredibly interesting, very, very diverse personalities coming by here and talking about stuff which is really close to all of our hearts, I think, and meaningful for what's happening out there in society as well. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what this panel of guys have to say. Father Michael, would you be the one to get us started? Because you're the one who's furthest away. You're the only one who's not actually here in Denmark, but you're coming over from the other side of the pond, as they say over in the US.
Yes, well, actually, I think Kevin is furthest away in Australia. But yeah, and y'all are on the other side of the pond. That's all a matter of perspective. What am I doing in men's work? About a year ago, I was asking the question, what would it look like to take men's work to the next level? Because I've been involved in CORE, I've been involved in Ryan Michler's Iron Council, I have my own men's group in my parish, I'm involved in a new Orthodox online men's group, so I see a lot of disparate stuff. I see the different kinds of groupings like what John does in Germany. We had Kevin Orosch there at the EMG last August, who's engaged in sort of the inner work part of men's work, which I don't have quite so much contact with anymore. But there's a lot of disparate things that go on. And I thought, what would it look like to take it to the next level? How could we be more effective? And I asked this question of a friend of mine, and he said, well, let's do it. Let's get a group of men together and do it. And so he provided lodgings at a all-inclusive resort in Cancun last December. And I had the idea, and I spoke to someone who had a very good Rolodex of influential men, and we got them all down there, and we put together what was called the MANN Uncaged Summit. I'll put it in the chat here in just a moment. You can call it up and have a look at it. But we did this a couple of weekends ago out in Sacramento, California. We had John Lovell of the Warrior Poet Society, who has like 1.5 million followers on YouTube. He has his own production company because he wants to produce videos and content without political correctness or wokeism getting in the way of what he is doing. Bedros Keuilian was there. He's an entrepreneur worth $200 million. He's a serial investor. He owns the Fit Body Bootcamp franchise, and he charges $100,000 a year to coach other entrepreneurs and clients. Ryan Mickler of the Iron Council was there. We had Matt Beaudreau, who is setting up alternative schools that basically teach business and entrepreneurship rather than calculus to 17-year-olds who will never use that again. We had Jack Donovan, who came and spoke about art as well. Tanner Guzzi came and talked about the importance of self-presentation and fashion, and Stephen Mansfield, who is a New York Times bestselling author, and he's sort of a political influencer in Washington, D.C. these days, an advocate for some causes around the world. We got them all together, and they presented a wonderful one-day conference. It was live cast. It was a free thing for anybody who wanted to tune in. 4,000 people watched. We had some places for some live attendees. We had about 45 men who showed up for a live attendance. They charged $750 US each for the attendance at this thing, and men were happy to pay it. And with additional upsells and freebies and whatnot that they gave out for people who showed up, they made something like $60,000 on this one-day event. It was very professionally done. I understand a couple of the men felt that they had lost money because they would have made more money had they done their own thing rather than do this. But we have a much better project manager now, and we're going to do it again in about 6 months' time. So I'm actively involved in putting together the next one. They believe they can have at least 10 times the live attendance and 10 times the revenue out of it as well. So we're looking at a live event of 500 to 600 men at least, and probably turning a profit of at least $500,000 US, and reaching even more thousands of men with a positive message for for positive masculinity and self-improvement. So that's what I'm involved in.
Always bigger and better over there, right? So
yeah, well,
Denmark, we're smaller and more cozy.
Yeah, well, I like small and cozy, but I sort of fell in the lap of these guys who do things on a scale I had never imagined before. It was really mind expanding to sit, with people who said, no, we can charge $750 a seat for this. I'm thinking, $750, God in heaven, who will pay that? And I found everybody who was, who wanted to be there was there.
Right. Well, thanks, Fr Michael. Exciting to be following and hearing and being connected to what's happening over there, and looking forward to what's going to continue. Let's go to a slightly different approach here now, because I think Eskil, it'll be good to I want to go kind of all the way to the other side of the aspect of where we're seeing the men's movement, especially post-corona. I think you have some things you want to talk about.
Yeah. Thanks, Paul. It's very much the other end of the spectrum. I've seen, Father Michael, I've seen some clips from that MANN Uncaged event. It looks, I could definitely attend like the next live one online. I don't have $750.
And a ticket to California.
Yeah. Okay, so for me, the big thing is it's a lot of things coming together, and it's very much about Manifesto. What means something to me now is also that Manifesto is rooted and based in Denmark. And that's also what my pull is. So my pull is actually bringing it close to the ground, and personally also going off the screen. So I'm looking at a couple of things. Right now we're at the headquarters, 17 men here, and I'm seeing that these men, we have built something over the past 2 years that's profound and genuine, and that has simply been built from online presence, going to these meetings like core team meetings, Friday meetings, MMA meetings every week, showing up and doing something together. And we built something real with very few physical anchors. And now Corona is done, and I feel I've undergone also an education in this community, and now I want to bring it back. I feel that where the urgency is for me is to do simply that normal men's work again, where you gather men in from for me it's Copenhagen, the local community men, bringing them together in a group and meet every other week or so, and simply support and push each other on our respective lives and projects in everyday life. And that's really what, and also because I really, really want to stay connected to this. Everything that we're in the middle of right here is, these are the men that I would reach out to in crisis. When I'm really in the shits, I would call these men here. So I'm looking also, especially this weekend, looking for that central gathering point. How do I stay connected to this hub of experience and wisdom and energy in this community building effort, and the awareness of what men need to bring together, and still pursue what's really, really alive for me, which is physical work that's anchored in the place that I live. Yeah, so yeah, that's like short and sweet about what's coming. Physical men's group in Copenhagen.
Thank you, Eskil. Perfect. I think we've set up a good range now. And from there, I actually want to take it to John, because John, you were talking over lunch about how you've seen post-corona, how, like, I think the word you use is the tribe is fragmented. It's spread out all over the place after this corona crisis. And you're the guy who's organizing the biggest men's conference here in Europe. So can you talk a little bit about, like, pick up the ball from Eskil, but then also give us a little insight about what's on your agenda?
Yeah, it's been great, like, getting this range from you lovely men that I both know, and good to see you, Michael, and congratulations on that amazing event that you apparently helped birth. And yes, it's about that for me as well. I was talking about that earlier, gathering the tribe, and also from this, what I call the evergreen question of the men's movement: how do we bring them together, right? And what can that take? And yes, I do believe that it needs these elements of, say, like a big sort of close, like even mainstream hoopla, where down to, and that down is not a hierarchy here, but it's that building block of real interaction between men that is deeply, deeply meaningful, and gives them that inner structure that can help them hold space for themselves, their family, and their tribe, and the world as a whole. So that building block of connecting with men, doing your own work, continuity is huge. And the big events like the one Michael just described, and the one we've been able to build here in Europe in quite a different way, because we're all volunteer based. We kind of never have enough money, although we're quite, blessed with what we've been able to accomplish. But it's these big events that bring people together, that make that connection to, oh wow, like they're, like reaching men with that, oh wow, that does exist. I never knew that I could feel that way around another man that I now consider a brother, that was just a stranger a day ago or 2 days ago, right? So I think these big events that can create a lot of emotion, and also excitement, in the sense of, wow, look who's there, look at that, the teacher that I've been wanting to meet and experience live. But then it really comes down to, what do you do in your daily life? And that bridging that and encouraging men to really do the work on themselves and with other men, that's always like what makes a difference in the end. That's when it really counts. That's when the big event actually landed where it needs to go, in that man's heart and in that man's life. On a practical level, we are in the middle of like putting on MANN SEIN 2022. We're going on in less than a month. Everything's crazy. It's that time of the year. I also will post that link so people know what the hell I'm talking about. And do invite everybody to feel that excitement here on our side of the pond in a live event that's very much about trying to do what I just described, where there is knowledge, there is a huge crowd, but there's also a lot of physical interaction. There's workshop, there's ice dipping, and there's wrestling. We do like all kinds of crazy stuff to bring men together, to make them experience and really feel that, what I call male depth, on all levels, from like brain, but also the heart and the body. So this is where I'm at. How?
Thanks, John. Great. Yeah. And beautiful to hear, like, you know, like, I mean, I really love and respect like the scale and the size, the ambition of the American project. And then I really love the heart of the German team that you guys have put together to put together a conference that, you know, attracts 400 or 500 people every single year. And it's run completely by volunteers. And just such big-hearted men down there. So that's great to get experience. I'm looking forward to going down there. Eskil, Bolo, David, all of us here in Europe, we're all heading down there. I think we're going to be a big Manifesto group there this year, and also some really exciting speakers coming in. So looking forward to that in less than a month. But I think, Bolo, you probably heard a couple of things there that were related to what you were speaking about earlier today. So I'm just going to pass that ball on to you. And let you carry on.
Sure, thank you, Paul. So yeah, for sure I can pull the thread from Father Michael about making things big. I have this dream of like making men's work more visible and more accessible to an average Joe, to an average guy. I have a feeling that a lot of men in our community is men who are already have this pool of developing and have tried different development aims and development modalities, and combining that dream with my skill set, or like what am I good at? It's like I work on a construction manager, so like I do projects. So combining those two things is like I put my effort into organizing the events. So this year I took much more leadership in organizing the EMG, which is already coming in the beginning of August, and all of the men here are coming.
Doing that.
Guys are coming, and then I also am pulling together an event in Poland. I wrote an open letter to Polish men's facilitators, and I got like 3 main collaborators. One of them is also coming to Berlin to the MANN SEIN conference. I encouraged him to come to also build a closer relationship to him. And we are building an event which will happen in Poland in September. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that's my efforts and my contribution.
Yeah, and Bolo plays a little bit too small or a little bit too humble, because he's pretty much taken over running the entire European men's gathering this year. I kind of meet with him regularly and spar a little bit with him, but he's the guy who has the ball, and he's planning the entire program and all the facilitators and the whole program. So he's taken on a massive load and is doing an amazing job. He has a job where he's have Fridays off. So I think Friday's dedicated to doing this. And I think, yeah, it's really exciting to see that development and bring that work over to Poland as well.
Thank you, Paul.
David, let's hear from our community elder to bring this all together about what the future is holding for us.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I'm interested in building community, and by community I mean the sense of common unity among men. I think that this is a real crucial thing to do and look at more deeply, so that we can find our way, navigate through differences, and integrate the gold in the differences without losing contact with each other or splitting organizationally. I'm one of the core team leaders for Babylon, and that's a microcosm of a macrocosm, and I'm really interested in continuing to help men develop the communication skills and the ability to access not only mental intelligence but our emotional intelligence, to be a truly creative man in service to the larger whole, to the well-being of the whole. And without that, I just don't see that there's any purpose in doing men's work. So I have my eye on moving through this educational process and building process to the place where we as men can take our place in the world, and not only individually but together. There's been some interest in Manifesto for living together And in order to build more masculine quality faster, I lived in spiritual community for over 20, 25 years of my life. I've seen the group dynamics being intensely creative as well as intensely destructive. And I know that my experience living in community is that it accelerated my own growth and accelerated interpersonal skill and growth too. And and I'm also aware that there may be men who want to work together as we develop these capacities. And I want to make myself available as a consultant and share my own experience around the dynamics of community, the challenges of community, the challenges of actually living and working together. Because there is a way through. I've given it a lot of thought. So,
yeah, thanks, David. That's I think great, and it really reflects, I think, like this heartfelt desire to support men who they're, especially many young single men these days who are really lacking like those really, they're not looking for a quick fix. They're not looking for just like, some product that can, like solve everything, but there's a need for like, or there's an opportunity at least to see like this as a strong arc that can kind of carry us through some pretty chaotic times that are coming in different ways. So great. Guys, I want to open up to the audience for questions, and especially if there's a challenging question that you have for us, a difficult question for this panel, for one man on this panel, something that you think wasn't addressed, that you're a little bit skeptical about or something like that, then please put your hand up. I'm going to start off with one thing because David mentioned this thing about dealing with differences. And one thing I think that's Mark's manifesto is that we're a very broad organization. There's a lot of multiplicity in here. And it's also a space where we've been able to handle large amounts of disagreement and have constructive conversations, both, especially offline, especially in closed men's groups, but also to some extent in open conversations as well. And so I just wonder if any of the other guys here have thoughts or questions about this thing of like handling difference in community and how we're doing that, and what's special, why do we need men's work, or what is the role of men's work as far as that is concerned?
I would like to, this is Gregor from Switzerland. I would like to ask one initial question as regards who of you is dealing as one of your aspects with young boys. So let's say, and as of my understanding, the traditional way is this boys to man, right? The initiation time when you're 14 or something like that in your age, and you have to have the older man as a group who bring you from the boy to the mankind. Who of you is offering something like that, and how much importance do you give that? I know that today I can share that most youngsters don't have it, and then they become 30, 40 and older before they recognize something wrong and they want to catch up with it. So how do you think we can catch up with that, going to the young boys to start at an early stage?
I'm happy to address this. This is really what's closest to my heart, and currently in Denmark right now, also in the fall, we have a team that is gonna facilitate a rites of passage trip for teenage sons and fathers out in nature. We do like a 2-3 day weekend, go away, activities, fathers and sons, doing exactly what you talk about, based on Rubinstein's work, Australian. Anna Rubinstein, he's been doing this for 30 years. And we, a bunch of us have done his leadership training. So I think it's key important. And that thing where you're talking about also, in how that first initiation is also part of what I really want to do, at least eventually, with the physical groups in Denmark, is catching those young men that really need to experience for the first time success in achieving something in a brotherhood. I mean, that first experience of masculine community coming together and achieving something. I think that is the first initiation. And I think for teenage boys, we can do the trips. For the young men, we do the groups, and we do like 3 months intense coming together with programs like this. So to me, it's very present. And yeah.
There's groups in Denmark and in Sweden that are there. Arne Rubenstein's been up here a couple of times. I think he's seen as like a kind of a general leader in this area, and he's had a lot of success within Australia. And I kind of feel like we're still in the experimental phase. Like it hasn't absolutely caught on, and it certainly hasn't gone mainstream. And I think Bolo touched a little bit on this aspect of like, how do we appeal to average Joe, Mr. and Mrs. Denmark, Sweden, Switzerland, Germany, and make this app appealing. And I think there's a bit of tidying up that we need to do in our own work as well. Like, what are the conversations when a guy comes into a men's group for the first time in one of our organizations? What are the kind of things that he's hearing? And some people, it's a bit too weird, a bit too esoteric, a bit too strange. That's part of, you know, like we are exploring the edges in a way, but we need to find a way of containing that. And I don't have the answers yet of it. I think it's a natural process that we're following. Father Michael, did you have something?
Yeah, though it's not specifically an initiation rite, there is a strong, Paul knows about this from his own son. There is an online mentoring program for young men called Apogee Strong. I'll put a link to it in the chat hereafter. It's a year-long program, monthly readings, weekly calls like this that we have for young men. And on their general calls, they bring in a businessman, an entrepreneur, someone who's been very successful in life, who helps these young men to understand what it takes for them to be successful in life. And they have direct access and Q&A back and forth with these guys. It's really one of the most beautifully put together things I've ever seen. So like I say, I'll put a link in the chat, and maybe you look it up and see if there's not something like that that could be replicated in Europe. I think it would be a good thing.
Thanks.
Just as a service to Gregor, we are men's workers that work with young adults, and always notice how important it is to, boys become men, and when we start working with them, they're already young men, and oftentimes what they need to do is kind of have that initiation. It's sort of like something they have to make up for that they didn't have, right? So boys' work is something that we very much foster, although we're not doing it ourselves yet. On our website, we have a boys section that is facilitated by somebody who is doing that in Austria, and that's kind of closer to your neighborhood too. So check out malevolution.org. There's a menu point called Jungen, and that will lead you in the right direction of an amazing boy and men's worker that's located in Austria, and he's a collaboration partner of ours.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gregor. Slav, you have your hand up, very patiently waiting there, so let's get you in here.
Yes, thank you. I actually have this question. Is men's work for every man? And because, like Bolo also mentioned that he wants to make it more accessible, men's work. And from my experience, I have some men that I really feel that this men's work would be beneficial for them, but maybe they are already in a group of men. Maybe not necessarily in a men's group, but they are in a group of men. So I'm like curious, what is your take on this, like men's work?
I think that for me, I took it from a personal perspective that when I stumbled on men's work for the first time, I was like, oh shit, that's what I was longing for many, many years. And I wasn't aware of that. And I think that it's part of every man that we have this longing. It's like also included in the story of the Percival that we read in our group, right? That there's this longing of being a part of a brotherhood of mature men, of the knights of the round table. And I think that every man has this longing, but probably men's work as we do it is not for everybody, because you can also have that in another form. Like, I don't know, you can be a part of hunting group with men and you hang out with them. And if you just it's not only about drinking and shooting animals, but it's about, having deep conversations, existential conversations. Then I think it fulfills that need.
And I think meeting that need is what it's about. Yes, and even us, we are doing quite a diverse range of how we bring what we call men's work to men. But it does start with that feeling of belonging, or these you could call it like a, basic nutrient of being a man, emotionally, belonging. And there is a lack of where people can get that. And no, it doesn't have to be our group sessions, but that essence of it, that the raising awareness that does exist. And when you do it consciously, it can almost occur anywhere instantly among men, right? And yes, it can be a hunting group, it can be whatever, the soccer team or whatever it may be, but getting it out there that there's a need for this. And part of what we're seeing, even on a global scale, wars, etc., have a lot to do with that lack, and that's kind of a message that we all need to get out there, no matter what group sessions we might be facilitating or not, right?
Let's hear Father Michael on this as well. I think, is men's work for everybody, all men?
I think it can be. For myself, I sort of, well, to make reference, that's the icon on the back wall there is Jonah being vomited out of the belly of the whale. And I think men's work can be for everybody, but men need it. And when men perceive the need, that things are not going well, that life's not shaping up, that they've reached either a point betwixt or between, you come to life transition, midlife or whatnot, and then men start looking. And when men become seekers, that's when they begin to find us in men's work. It's my own experience here in the United States. There are a lot of late 20, early 30-something men who are coming to the Orthodox Church. And the reason they're coming are not specifically for religious reasons, but they're ready to grow up. They've smoked way too much weed. They've played too much video games. They've sort of frittered away their early years. They're looking for some stability, some maturity, some truth with a capital T, and that sort of thing. But they know what they need to do, but they don't know how to do it. And they need someone to kind of show them and mentor them or usher them along the way. And, if it, as I joke, if it were a matter of information, we'd all be billionaires and have six-pack abs. The guys know what to do, but they can't get their shit together to do it. And that's where I think men's work comes in. And that's the beauty, of the core groups, where we have mutual accountability, where we can support each other and kick each other in the ass when we need to do that, and help each other to get over those rough places where we don't know how or don't believe we can do it on our own. And it's at those times that men's work really becomes important. And if we can be there, if men know that there are places or organizations where they can go to get that help, they can come and get the help they need, then get on with the rest of their lives, and we have them for a while, we help them along their way and send them on. And there are a few nuts, like John and David and myself, who sort of get stuck here, and we get our own needs met, but we come for ourselves, but we eventually stay. Because we love the work and we want to help other men, to do the same thing. And that's, but that comes from the experience of having received so much from it ourselves in the first place, and say, my God, this was so good for me. Everybody else should have the opportunity to experience what I got here. So I'm willing to stick around and make sure other people get it.
I think like having male fellowship was just a natural, very, very valuable core thing. And I think the reason, so I'd say men's work as such, well, men's work is kind of like recovering as something of a lost art to a certain extent, which is like, deep brotherly connections. We're also going deeper with it, I think. And I think just, a large amount of men didn't have those male role models, didn't have that close sense of brotherhood, didn't have the sense of accountability, especially. Like there's a, so my son is on that program that Father Michael mentioned about, called Apogee Strong, my 15-year-old, and just the change in him, being set a vision, a standard to live up to, which is far higher than anything he gets out of school, right? Like in school, if he just like kind of shows up most of the time, then it's great, then he's already outperforming everybody. So setting a higher standard and a masculine kind of verticality, that's what I see what men's work has to play as an additional role for ourselves. But I think you can get it from lots of different places, and it's very personal, as Bolo said. So, you know, I have a local men's, we call it a gentleman's club here in the little town where I live, which is out in the Danish countryside, but it's very, very different to the way that we meet in the European Men's Gathering in Core. But it's just as valuable and just as deep as well. But it doesn't look in the same way. The men have a different way of going into that together, right? So a lot of it's around like doing stuff together, and then the conversations come. Yeah. Good. I think we're going to say that was good for the recording. So we're going to say goodbye to the people who've been following us online. Just that if this sounds interesting for anybody, then the European Men's Gathering is coming up here in August. And it's going to be a really powerful gathering of people. If you need a taster of that, then MANN SEIN, not so far off in June, is the place to go in Berlin. And then the real deep dive into this kind of work is happening in Denmark on the first weekend of August.